Good evening and welcome to your yin practice this Sunday evening. For those who are doing the 30-day yoga challenge, it's day 26. I can't believe how quickly this month has gone, as I'm sure most of you are feeling exactly the same. So this evening, we will be working through our hips and our hamstrings. So props that will be needed are 2 blocks of the equivalent, so you could use books, anything that's going to take your body weight, a strap, or you could use a belt, a dressing gown tie, a scarf, a blanket, and then a prop or a bolster or the equivalent of a bolster. So maybe a cushion, a pillow, something like that that can support you whilst we're in our practice this evening. So slowing down the weekend, slowing down the week before we start a new week tomorrow. Last half week of April before we come into May. So let's start in a cross-leg position on our bolster or whatever you're using as your bolster. So come to cross-legged, grow nice and tall, root down through the sit bones, and then bring the backs of the hands to the thighs so the palms face up towards the ceiling. And then just pause here. So not thinking about too much, not thinking about the breath at the moment, just arriving, allow the body to settle on your mat this evening. Close down the eyes. And then just make a few adjustments if needed to get as comfortable as possible so that you can then pause in stillness. So first of all, bring your awareness from the crown of the head. So think about somebody drawing out from a piece of string all the way up to the ceiling. So we've got this lovely length. A little gentle tuck in of the chin to open up through the back of the neck. And just notice how the jaw is feeling this evening. Are you feeling a little bit tight, sticky? So maybe part the jaw and take the jaw side to side. That can be a really nice release. Often hold tension through the jaw, especially if you're stressed, anxious. Clench the jaw, grind the teeth. And then bring your focus to the shoulders. Soften the shoulders away from the ears. And think about that broadness through the chest. And then the spine, growing nice and tall through the back of the body. And then the sit bones are grounding down into your prop. So allow everything to become heavy. And although we are in our cross-leg position, can we ease any tension through the legs? So imagine everything's drawing down towards the ground. You're rooting down, finding almost a heaviness within the body. And then before we come to our breath work, just notice what's going on with the mind. So if it's chitter-chattering, try not to hold on or attach yourself to any of those thoughts. They're there, and then just allow them to go. And always remember, we can never pause or stop our thoughts. They'll always be there, but we can learn how to not attach and hook on to those thoughts. Okay, so we're going to start with our alternate nostril breathing. Really beneficial for balancing both the left and right side of the brain, our masculine, our feminine, our yin, yang, moon, sun energy. So it's very cooling on the nervous system. Great for using if you're feeling stressed or anxious, but also on a physical level, if you're feeling a little bit blocked through your sinuses or your nose, and this really helps clear those. So bringing your right hand, bring the right thumb to the right nostril, and then the next 2 fingers between the eyebrows, and then your 4th finger to the left nostril. Close down the right nostril and inhale for a count of 4 through the left. At the top, close the left nostril and retain the breath for 1. Release the right and exhale for 4. Inhale through the right for 4. Close the right for 1. Release the left. Exhale through the left for 4. Inhale through the left for 4. Close the left and pause. Release the right and exhale for 4. So continuing this with your own breath, your own rhythm in silence. Allow the belly to rise on the inhale. Just a few more rounds, and just make sure that we finish. When you're finished your last round, you finish with an exhale to the left. Good, and once you finish with the exhale to the left, release the hands, release the right hand and come back to normal, natural breath, and just find that, allow your body to settle, allow the breath to settle with that connection, in through the nose and out through the nose. Good, and then slowly blinking the eyes open, bring your hands in front of you, interlacing the hands, reach the arms up overhead, find that length of the spine. Exhale, side bend to the right. So opening up through that left side body. Good. Left shoulder rolls back a little bit as the right shoulder draws forwards. Inhale to center. Exhale to the left. Good. Inhale to center and then float the hands down. So coming off of the bolster or your props now, we're going to come to our cross-leg forward fold. So if we all take the right leg in front, so the right leg crosses in front of the left. If this is too much knee flexion, then almost create like a diamond shape. So you bring the legs a little bit further in front of you, but we still want that right leg in front of the left, if that makes sense. Option to sit on a blanket, just to tilt the pelvis a little bit. And then bringing your blocks and your bolster in front of you. And we're going to bring that bolster to a slant, so at an angle. And then we're just going to allow the body to come down, folding forwards over that bolster. If you're quite open in your hips, then you might only need one of the blocks, so it's at a lower setting, or you might not need any at all, but just find that ease in the pose. You're not straining, you're not holding on anywhere. So feeling that discomfort, but without pushing yourself too much. So coming down. Soften the shoulders. Let go of the hips. And come to that natural, easy, steady breath. So in through the nose and out through the nose, keeping that breath connection and giving yourself permission to surrender here. So can you find ease and quietness in those moments of silence, stillness. Remember that these poses aren't permanent. So if your mind is, if you're wanting to come out, you're wanting to fidget, you're wanting to make any adjustments, just ask yourself first if it's your mind telling you to do so, or if it's your body, your physical body. If it's your mind, then use the breath. That breath connection will help soften and give your mind something else to think about. Of course, if you've got pain, then please make any adjustments, come out and adjust where you are. Good. 5 more breaths here. Last breath. Good. And then gently easing yourself up. Just pause here in this upright position. Allow the hips to respond, adjust. Good. And then change the cross of the legs. So the left leg now comes in front. And then find that pose. So you may have to alter the bolsters slightly, the props, especially if you're tighter one this side than the other. And then when you're ready, coming down onto that prop. Pause here, soften here. And if any time your mind wanders, then count the breaths. So breathe in for 4 or 5, and then exhale for 5 or 6. So the exhale is longer than the inhale. Good. 5 more breaths here. Last breath. Good. And slowly inhaling out of that pose. Okay, so we're going to come to our Malasana squat now. So bringing your props, your bolster, or your bolster equivalent. You can also use the block for this too. So what we're going to do is come into our Hindi squat. So bring the legs wide and sit down onto that bolster. So we want the feet at a slight angle, so the heels in, the toes facing out. you can also stack your blocks and then put the blanket underneath it to get a little bit more height. So do whatever you need to get that height where you can soften into that pose. And then bring the hands, bring the elbows inside the thighs, and then bring the palms to touch, and use the elbows to get a little bit more space in through the inner hips. And then find that length through the spine and pause here. Close down the eyes. And just breathe into the inner thighs. Find that quietness. And then scanning the body, just noticing if there's any areas you're holding on to, especially the shoulders, the neck, the hips, all areas that are common for storing tension. That's not just physical tension, that could be mental tension, emotional tension. So just give yourself that permission to let go. We're often holding on, gripping on. Whereas here is creating that time and space for both your body and your mind to soften, to let go. Ease through the jaw. Keep that breath flowing freely around the body. Steady inhales, steady and lengthened exhales. Again, if you're wanting to get out or make any adjustments or fidget, ask yourself, is it your mind resisting or is it your physical body needing to get out? So before you move, just ask yourself the question and then pause for a few rounds of breath before you make any changes or movements. Just here for a little bit longer. Five more breaths here. Good. And slowly opening the eyes. Release the hands. And however you can, really gently ease off of the props. And then we're going to come to our tabletop position just to neutralize the spine. Bring that movement back into the hips. So stack the knees underneath the hips, the shoulders on the wrists and the elbows, and then just bring a little bit of gentle movement side to side. Good. Okay, so now coming into our forward fold. So you can sit on the blanket just to give your pelvis a little help in that tilt, to give you a bit more space. And then using your blocks and your bolster, you can either have the bolster up at an angle. So we want the legs to be hip width, maybe a little bit wider than hip width distance. And you can either bring the bolster on the tall setting towards you like this, or if you know you're more open, then you can reverse it and then allow the body to fold down the other side. You can also prop it up a little bit with the other blanket. So do what works for your body. So there's plenty of options here. And the most important thing with your yin practice, your restorative practice, is do what works for your body rather than what you see, okay? So coming down, allow the head to rest, softening the legs. Good. Allow the spine to curve. So sometimes it may feel right for a little bit, and then you're like, oh no, this needs to change. So it's perfectly normal to need to make any adjustments, but to make the adjustments at the beginning, so then you can come to that relaxation. And soften the shoulders. Maybe just give the legs a little wiggle to make sure that the fronts of the thighs are softened. Often we can subconsciously hold on. The head is totally supported on the bolster. The arms are softening onto the bolster. And then allow gravity to draw you down. So this is a passive pose here. We don't want to force the body. It's that heaviness from gravity. Take a little bit longer. Five more breaths here. One last breath. Good. And slowly bringing yourself up. Good. Okay, so we're going to come into our wide leg forward fold now. So exactly the same setup here. You might want to play around. I'm going to face you so you can have a look at me. Again, you can use the blanket underneath the sit bones to give you a little bit of height. And then the blanket can either be the bolster, the props can either be at an angle towards you or away from you. And then in terms of the legs, we want to open them out, but not too far. So it's not an active pose here, like in our vinyasa, our power styles. So we're opening, but passively, okay? So try not to force the body, not forcing the legs open. And then when you're ready, coming down, resting the head. So feeling a little bit of discomfort, but never any pain. You don't want to go to your end range. You don't want to be holding on, engaging the quadriceps. It's softening the muscles here, okay? And then bring the head down. Maybe use a blanket to prop you up a bit. Allow the head to be heavy, the spine to round. using the breath. Breathing through the nose and out through the nose. So our hips are one of the areas that we can often get fidgety in for various reasons. Often we're very tight in our hips, especially those who are runners, cyclists, go to the gym a lot, but also on a day-to-day basis, generally we as humans now live quite sedentary lifestyles. So often our jobs are sat down for long periods of the day, working at computers, driving a car. All of these can create tightness within the hips. And again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of tension gets stored in the hips as well. So opening within the hips can be quite challenging for a lot of people. So if you're one of those who's feeling perhaps something coming up, something releasing, something coming to the surface, you're feeling fidgety, agitated, this is all very normal, but try to breathe through it and try to bring the mind back and almost take yourself inwards to wherever you're feeling it. So taking the mind to the muscle. And what works quite well for me, and I quite like sharing, is visualization. So visualizing that wherever you're tight, wherever you're feeling any discomfort, it's a challenge somewhere, is as you inhale, you're filling up a balloon. So you're creating this space and openness within the part of the body that is feeling restriction. And then the exhale softens and lets go. So if you imagine this, and I find that helps me to add a little bit of softness. Good, just a little bit longer here. Five more breaths. Last breath here. Good. And slowly lifting yourself back up. Pause here for a moment. Just ease out of those hips, allow any responses to happen. Good. So when we're in our yins, because we're holding the poses for longer, it's really important that we come out really gently. And then bring the weight back slightly, bring the hands under the knees as you bend the knees, bring the legs back together, and pause here with the knees bent. Not coming into any rush movement here, just a really gentle ease. And then perhaps if you want to bring a little bit of movement, if you're feeling a response, any sensations, bring the hands behind you, and just a really gentle sway, not flinging the legs side to side, just a little gentle movement, easing back into those hips. Good. Okay, so we're coming into our pigeon now. So set up again, depending on your body. So I will guide you through it, but we'll probably need all of our props apart from the strap. So coming into your all fours tabletop, and then glide the right knee underneath the right wrist, and then begin to walk the right foot across to the left. Tuck the left toes under, slide the left leg back. So if your right hip is lifted off of the mat, then use a blanket or a block. And the same with the left. If there's a lot of tilt, a lot of space between the left hip and the floor, then use a blanket just to wedge, as a wedge. Good. Okay, so with the right foot, the closer the heel is towards the left sit bone, so the less intense it is, the more parallel the right shin is with the front of the mat, the more intense it is and the deeper opening. But just listen to your body here. And then bringing the bolster in front of you, inhale to find that space, and then exhale, surrendering down. And just take the breath into that right hip. Allow the belly to flow up and down, not holding it, not drawing it in, just allow it to rise and fall. The shoulders are soft, the head is soft, and imagine you're surrendering the hips down into the mat. Keeping that connection to the breath. Where can you release and soften? I find as well, if there's an area that I'm realizing I'm holding on to, into that area, take a deep breath in and then perhaps sigh and release through the mouth on the exhale. You're just here a little bit longer. Five more breaths. Last breath here. Good. Ever so slowly press yourself up off with the bolster. Pause here, not coming out of the pose too quickly. Good. And then tuck the left toes under, draw the left knee as you lift the hips up. And then step the right knee underneath the hip, come back to that tabletop. And just notice what's going on with the hips there. Maybe give the hips a little gentle sway, bring that movement back before we prepare for the other side. Okay, so then come to stillness. Glide the left knee underneath the left wrist and then walk the left foot towards the right. Tuck the right toes under, slide the right leg back, find that space. And then using your props where needed. So perhaps you need to bring a blanket just to prop the left hip up a little bit. Maybe bring something as a wedge in front of the right hip. So we want the pelvis, the hips to be square here. And then bringing your props in front of you, your bolster, your pillow, your blocks. Good. Pause here. Take a deep breath in. And then exhale, fold down over your props here. And then pause, arrive, Breathing into that left hip. Good. So you may feel a little bit more resistance here. You might find you've got more space. And just be aware of how your mind responds to that. In through the nose, maybe out through the mouth. Soften just a little bit more. Creating that balloon in the left hip as we inhale, find that space. Exhale to soften and surrender. We're just a little bit longer here. Five more breaths here. One more breath. Good, and then slowly lifting up. Pause here with your hands down. Good, so not moving too quickly, easing our way out of the pose, just being gentle to the body. Good, and then tuck the right toes under, press into the hands, and we want to lift the hips as we draw the right knee in underneath us a little bit closer, and then gently slide that left leg back. So we're in our tabletop position. Either pause here or maybe bring a little gentle sway to the hips, easing back in to those hips. Good. Nice. So we have our final peak pose now. So our log stacking or fire stacking pose. So option, well, first of all, you need to listen to your knees here. So I'll give you two different options. So perhaps you want to place the blanket underneath the sit bones to add a little bit more height. And then what we want to do is take the right shin as parallel with the front of the mat as you can. So again, what you can do here is put a blanket underneath the knee. And then what we're going to do is stack the left ankle either below the right knee or above the right knee. Again, if your knees are massively off of the air, roll the blankets up, put those underneath. And if this is just too much, then what you can do is walk the feet forwards and cross the left ankle on top of the right ankle. You still get an opening into those hips, but it's not as deep knee flexion and not as deep through those hips. Okay, so then bring a bolster in front of you. So it might be enough for you to stay here. This is already quite an intense pose. Or what you can do is start to fold over onto the bolster. So breathing here. Breathe in through the nose. Take the breath to the left hip. And then soften. Shoulders are soft. Neck is soft. The breath is flowing freely. And again, noticing if there's any resistance mentally, physically. And imagine the hips are melting down into the mat. And then pause here in your silence, in your quiet time, keeping that breath connection. Five more breaths here. One more breath. Good. And then gently easing out. Pause here first. Good. And then gently unstacking the legs out. So we've got the knees bent, feet on the floor, and just pause here. Allow any adjustments to happen within the hips. Good. Close down the eyes and take 5 breaths here. Last breath. Good. And then opening the eyes and then coming to the other side. So crossing the left leg in front, the shin as parallel to the mat at the front of the mat as you can. Maybe placing a blanket underneath the left knee and then bringing the right ankle either below the left knee or just above it. So we're crossing the legs on top of each other, but we don't want the ankle directly on the knee for that pressure to be pushing down. Good. And then creating that angle with the bolster. Good. And then pause here. Just allow the adjustments, allow the shifts to open and respond. And then as we exhale, we fold down. Soften the head, the neck, the shoulders. Breathing here. Keep that breath connection. And then come to that stillness, that silence, and just be here connecting body, mind, breath. Allowing the breath to flow freely within the body. In through the nose and out through the nose. Especially allow the breath to flow to the areas of tension, the right hip maybe, the left hip, the lower back. Good. Just a little bit longer here. Five more breaths. Last breath here. Good. Slowly lift up. Pause here. Just allow the hips to adjust, respond to what we've just created. The fascia, the connective tissue, is what we're working with through our yin style practice. Good. And then gently ease the right leg off, the left leg, bend the knees, ground the feet, and then bring the hands behind you. Just pause here for a moment. Good, and then start to introduce really gentle rocking side to side. So we're not taking the knees all the way one side and the other. We don't want to pull too much on the sacrum, the tendons, the ligaments, just a really gentle mobilization through that hip joint, internally, externally rotating, the ball in the socket. Good, and then come to stillness. Okay, so making your way down onto your back now, ready for your relaxation, your Shavasana. So coming down with either the bolster underneath the knees, you can place the blanket as a pillow. If you are close to a wall, you can put the legs up the wall. You don't have to use any props here if you don't want to, but the idea is to get as comfortable as possible so that you can totally relax, totally ease and let go. Closing down the eyes, bringing the hands down, the arms down beside you with the palms facing up. Good. And then finding your softness in that pose. Coming to an easy, natural breath, softening the body, visualizing yourself becoming heavier and heavier with the exhale. Letting go, I whisper, it's okay to release. Letting go, my body says, thank you, back to me. Letting go, my mind settles, finding silence so sweet. Letting go, I feel my body welcoming in peace. This feeling of centeredness, grounded and ease, becomes available anytime I'm willing to let go and welcome release. So I'm going to leave you here in your Shavasana. Please take as long as you want to or you feel is needed. But as always, it's been an absolute pleasure guiding you through this hip yin sequence this evening. I hope to see you soon on the mat. Have a lovely Sunday evening. Namaste.